Hi, today's video is going to be both a combination of nostalgia for the many years that I've kept fish and also bred fish, but also a little bit about some of the history of fish keeping starting in the 1960s when I started with my father and some other relatives and friends along the way. And the first fish that I had was a goldfish that I mentioned in another video. But my very first experience with fish was seeing a beautiful outdoor pond with a waterfall and goldfish in it across the street in Southern California that was owned by a couple. And I was absolutely fascinated by it. I could have gone over and sat there every day if they had let me. It was just so beautiful, and I'll never forget the little orange fish flashing in and out of plants and rocks around the pond. And that and having a little goldfish that I'd gotten from a carnival just started my fascination with fish that's lasted my whole life. And but the first actual aquarium that I had was with the help of my Uncle Robert, who lived way down in the Imperial Valley, and he had a beautiful 30-gallon tank with two 10-gallon tanks on either side, and the 30-gallon main tank was filled with beautiful fancy guppies, which he raised, and he would share with people, and he would take some of the fish to the local fish stores back when the little stores would accept them, unlike the big box stores today that usually don't because they have their own suppliers. But all he had was gravel and pondweed, which we call anacris or elodia, growing in it, and it was just so beautiful. I loved sitting in front of the tank, which was lowered down close to the floor, so nieces and nephews and grandchildren could see the fish easily without having to stand up. We could just sit there and watch, and it was a great experience down there. And he had a air-driven corner filter that was a lot like this one, very much like this one, only it was larger in the tank, and it was connected to a Silent Giant air pump. If anybody remembers those, they were about the size of a coffee can and beige in color, and they had a constant hum that was made by the diaphragm, rubber diaphragm that was in the air pump that would vibrate and push air through. So the way, for anybody that doesn't already know how that works, the air would go in through a tube in the back of the filter from the air pump, and it would pull water up through the bottom of the filter, and that would filter out the water impurities, and then it would go up through glass wool back then, spun glass wool, that would filter out particles. And that the glass wool was the first thing that we had, and it was really nasty stuff. I was about 7 years old at the time, way back in the mid-60s, and you had to be careful when you touched it that you wouldn't get splinters in your hands. So usually my father would handle it, or he would have me use gloves. But later it was changed to polyester filter floss or wool, which was so much better because we didn't have to worry about the glass splinters in it. And he had a castle, and he had a little sunken ship that were made of ceramic back then in the tank, and I would just sit there and watch it for hours when we would go down and spend a few days and visit with him. So that got me started, and I'll just never forget the sound of those air-driven pumps back then. There was always this constant hum in the background, but they also made a bubbling sound. You'd see air bubbles being released up here at the top of this filter stem, and for those that remember, it always made a sound that sounded like this. All day long. And I remember that sound when I walked into fish stores, and when I went into somebody's house, I immediately knew there was an aquarium somewhere just by that sound. But that's how I got started in the hobby, because he always had extra fish, and one weekend when we went to visit him, he asked my parents if I could have a 5-gallon spare tank that he had, and a little filter, and he even had an older Silent Giant pump, an extra pump that he was going to allow me to have. And so he sent me home with some mason jars with little guppies and a couple mollies in them, and a few strands of the pondweed, and I brought it home and set it up. And we had it in the kitchen at first, and then my mother was concerned about the cooking fumes getting into the tank, which was pretty intuitive of her at the time, and so we moved it into the bedroom, and it was wonderful because it was right next to my bed, and I could come home every day after school and lie there and watch the fish tank, and it was there, you know, whenever I was playing in my room, and I just loved it. So that's how I got started in fish, and it's been a lifelong interest for me. I'd love to hear other people's stories on YouTube too, because there's some interesting information. One of the things that's interesting was that it was way down in the Imperial Valley, and it was flooded at the time. We actually went to a park to play while we were down there. My father took my 2 brothers who were still at home, and we went over and we got to play in this park that had a foot of water in it, and that was fascinating for somebody who loves water and fish, because I was running through this grass that had a foot of water over it, and I was just imagining what it would be like if there were little fish swimming in it too, but there weren't. But he also took us down to see the Salton Sea, which is actually the Salton Sea sink. And there is a fascinating history about the Salton Sea. If you've never looked it up, there are videos all over YouTube on it, and information on computers about it, how it was actually a disaster that was man-made due to some unexpected flooding after some waterways were built down there, and it's just very interesting to read about. Thank you for watching today.